We're going to get back to all this in just a moment, but we're going to switch gears. And we welcome back to the show General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst. General Keane, thank you, sir. We always appreciate having you on. Let me play for you. This is what President Trump told me in an interview earlier this week, General Keane. I just want to review the bidding because I asked him directly about Iran and regime change. We don't have it yet. It's coming in a second. Okay. What do you think, General Keane? Regime change coming? Will war hostilities resume soon?
Well, President Trump, has advertised he's got his options open here, and he's trying to stitch together a better deal than certainly that's ever been constructed with the Iranians in the past. Remember full well, in 2018, it was President Trump that walked away from the nuclear deal that Obama had constructed, which was supposedly going to prohibit Iran from ever having a nuclear weapon. Strangely enough, the major focus of the deal, in 10 years, they could have a threshold capability, which meant close to a nuclear weapon. And in 15 years, all restrictions for the development of a nuclear weapon were removed. And that's why that deal was so bad. And guess what? Trump pulled away from that. And I cannot fathom him putting together a deal that would not give us complete assurances, not only on nuclear weapons, but also on ballistic missiles, restrictions in numbers and range, and also denying Iran support of the proxies. In other words, a total fundamental change in Iran's behavior to include no longer killing and in such a barbaric fashion their own people. I don't believe that Trump would ever put together a lousy deal. So I think the likelihood of Iran agreeing to that is negligible.
General Keane, we have the tape ready. Pardon me for the technical difficulties, sir, but this is what he told me in our interview on Monday. We played it Tuesday. Take a listen, please, sir. Do you think a deal with Iran, with this current regime, would ever really stick?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know one thing. They want to make a deal. They wouldn't talk to anybody else, but they're talking to me. But, it's a good question. A lot of people say no. And I would say that I'd rather make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that, all the different things that you want. But some people worry that they've been very dishonest with us over the years, right? Very dishonest. Obama and Biden, what they did in terms of creating a monster with Iran was terrible. That Iran nuclear deal was one of the dumbest deals I've ever seen.
So he basically is in agreement with you, General Keane, on those points. It is said that another aircraft carrier group is now moving towards the Middle East. There are talks, but the talks are unsatisfactory. What does your intel tell you about the story there? New York Post this morning, you may have seen it, saying Iran, the mullahs and the Revolutionary Guard, they're batting down the hatches. They're putting cement over some of these nuclear mines, enrichment mines. Sounds like they're getting ready for war. Do you think so? Your intel tell you that?
Yes, it does. I mean, the Iranians are talking nice about a deal, and I think their motivation is they want to put off this military operation, which seems inevitable, as long as they can. And if they ever did put together a deal, what they want is sanction release. And if they got that, what are we doing? That recovers the regime. We'd have to deal with these guys, another 10 years or so. That doesn't make any sense, given the fact they're so vulnerable now. It's not that they don't have some capability, they do. They got thousands of ballistic missiles, scores of rockets, and certainly likely thousands of drones. But if we combine the United States military with Israel, which is the plan, and we conduct not a limited attack, but a campaign against Iran, we are putting together, in execution, the two best proven militaries that exist today, and it would fundamentally change this regime for decades to come. It would crush it, and we would have an opportunity on the horizon to work with what follows them, certainly, to stitch together an enduring peace and a better way of life for the people of Iran, for sure. It would define the presidency of President Trump and likely be such a seminal event comparable to the fall of the Berlin Wall. I mean, these thugs and killers, under the hypocrisy of being clerics and mullahs, have been in control now for almost 50 years. And that's how outrageous this thing is. 7 presidents have never confronted them consequentially. This is the first president has done that. He stopped the nuclear deal. He killed Qasem Soleimani. He disrupted and destroyed their nuclear program. And I think we're on the cusp of finally putting an operation together that will clearly set the conditions for regime collapse. That, I believe, is the path that we're likely going to be on here.
Well, I think, the images, Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump meeting at the White House, they had a lot of talks. It's all been very diplomatic. They're not really saying anything, which is fine. But you have to figure there's some wartime regime change planning going on here. As I mentioned there, I've just been reading about another aircraft carrier group moving into that zone. So that's important, because you were the one that told us about a week ago that we had 2 aircraft carrier groups when the B-2s were dropping their bombs. So we just had one at that point, I think the Abraham Lincoln. So anyway, a second grouping is coming. That strikes me as important. And the other thing is, General Keane, I hate to say it, but even on the economy, I mean, Iran's currency is worthless right now. It can't be used on the streets to transact. Food shortages are everywhere. Their inflation rate is 40 or 50%. Their unemployment rate is 40 or 50%. Yeah, they've got missiles. I'll grant you that. I don't know if I don't think the nuclear systems, I think we pretty much destroyed that. But the point is, this would be the time to strike right now. They've never been weaker.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Larry. I mean, the reason that brought so many people into the streets that exceeded all previous demonstrations was the reality that they knew that this regime cannot recover Iran economically. They cannot improve the people's quality of life. And they knew this is abject failure, and the only thing that is possible for them to have a decent life for their kids and their grandkids, they took to the streets and were willing to risk their lives, and risk their lives they certainly did. And President Trump told them help is on the way. And I do believe it hasn't come as fast as they would want it to be, but there are reasons for that. And we can see those reasons before our eyes. Bringing in capability so that we can adequately defend U.S. bases in the region, and also help Israel defend its people and its bases, and then bring the capacity, a significant capability here, to conduct a joint and combined campaign with Israel to take down leadership, the entire infrastructure that sustains the regime, and certainly the ballistic missiles and their launchers, and wherever they have those drones stored and prepared to launch. This would be a very comprehensive campaign with the mission to set the conditions for a regime collapse. That, I think, is where we are going and what is going to happen.
Well, President Trump has a habit and a knack of doing the right thing at the right time. I mean, his timing is exquisite. He may lead them along, and yeah, genuinely, he probably would prefer to have a deal and peace. But I think he knows all the things you're describing, the things that I'm reading. He may be just putting all the resources together and getting ready to make the move that you want him to make and that I want him to make, and then I think, good people everywhere want him to make. It's about freedom. This would help Israel, for sure, but it would help Europe, and it would help save the United States. It really would be a remarkable thing. Anyway, General Keane, I got to jump. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your wisdom, as always.